I might want to buy an expensive item I probably should not buy.
Oh gosh, what is it?
The Vision Pro.
Oh
It's
no.
so cool.
I,
And I can use it for work. It links up to my computer. When I'm editing a video, it could be over here.
are
You know
you
what
gonna
I'm
be one of those people that's just walking around in real life, like
saying?
touching the air? And
100%. 100%.
I will never be caught dead doing that. However, I do think their branding strategy is freaking genius, and I think they executed it so well.
I agree.
And that's why we're going to be talking about what good branding is and why it matters on today's episode. So, welcome back to the Journey Podcast. I'm your co host, Emma Jackson.
And I'm Jose.
And if you're not already subscribed, you know what to do. Click that subscribe button. We release new episodes twice a week where we dive into interesting topics about running and scaling your business. And we're also just great people to have conversations with, to listen to. You're driving to work, you don't know what to do. What are you going to do? Listen to the Journey Podcast.
Good branding matters, in my opinion.
Why? Tell me.
Because at the end of the day, a consumer can look at the product, they can look at your logo, and they already identify who you are, what are your core values, what are your company stands for.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it's how our customers identify, right, with the brand and the sea of competition. It's like what makes you stand out. It's not just the product. A lot of it is branding. I'm curious to know how you did that with, it's easier to talk about it with a product, but like a service-based industry, like with your barbershop, how did you develop the brand around the barbershop?
It was funny. The location itself kind of threw it back. So I got a location that was a barbershop in 1903, 1904,
Ooh.
100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They had the traditional like marble floors, checkerboard. So what I did is like I wanted to infuse like the modern style of haircuts, but with the old school feel to it. So the brand was like, come to our shop. We would treat you like you were back in the 1900s, like the traditional hot shaves, the 14 strokes, where it was not common in today's industry. And what we did is we documented it. We took a whole bunch of pictures, videos, and then we started doing advertising and promotions to show people, hey, you come to our shop, you're gonna get the modern haircuts, but you're gonna get an old school feel. So it was like a combination of both worlds.
And that was something that the other barbershops in the area weren't really doing, right?
Exactly. And then we kind of mirrored that with the name Classic Cuts, which is funny. After we named the Classic Cuts, we never trademarked or copyrighted. We had a lot of other competitors using the name, but that was like kind of the point. We're a classic barbershop, but with modern feels to it. And then we kind of like grew it every single little branch from there.
You know what I like about that is that when you have a strong brand, that usually takes time to present itself. You can come up with the foundation, but it really shows up over time as long as you're being consistent. That's how you develop customer loyalty. People see that branding, they think Classic Cuts. They see the black and the white, they see the checkerboard floors, even the traditional barbershop, they're like, Classic Cuts, right? And then they come in and they know they're going to get that kind of service and that elevated old school approach. And all of that comes into branding. I think which most people don't think about. Branding is not just the packaging design. It's not just your logo and colors. It comes into store design, or in your case, like what the barbershop looked like. Don't you have uniforms for people and everything?
We were black polos with the company logo on them. We really much curated to the experience of the client. So our branding is more not about like packaging, but it's like when you come into the shop, how do you feel? How do my barbers treat you? The environment, the haircut, the quality, and the price point you're paying on that. It's like a multi-face approach.
That's so smart, and that really allows you to distinguish yourself from competitors and all of that. I think good branding, obviously we do this for a living, so I'm very passionate about good branding, but I think it truly matters. And I think good branding can't just be what you think is trendy. A lot of times new companies start up and they're choosing the colors that are in, or the patterns or the fonts or whatever it may be. And you know what that looks like? You go to the supermarket and everything looks the same, even though it feels super unique because there's no tie. Like some of the best brands have like this tie to what makes them them. Like you took inspiration from the location of your physical shop and you said, there's a tie here. There's a thread I'm going to pull through in the branding, and it feels super cohesive and authentic.
No, yeah, 100%. At the end of the day, I think with new trends coming out in today's society, companies should not try to adopt those trends. They should try to embed those trends within the culture of their business. Like, this is my business. This is what I represent. This is my brand voice. How do I adapt this new trend to this without making myself not seem authentic to myself.
Well, that's the other thing. You hit it the nail on the head. It's also about really, you have to believe in your brand identity because that's going to stick with you for a while. It's not like you got a couple of years into classic cuts and we're like, we're going to take on a totally different approach. And instead of like 1900s, we're going to go 70s or 80s because that's more in, you know?
Mhm.
A lot of brands will jump on the bandwagon and they'll try to take advantage of a branding phenomenon, but they will lose sight of who they are. And the result is like people can't identify with them. A really funny example is Kia released, I think a couple of years ago, a whole new line of cars and they changed the logo
I
so
hate Kias.
much. They changed the logo so much that people thought it was literally a new kind of car,
A new
a
brand.
new brand. And I remember I fell victim to it because I saw this car and I was like, what brand is that? And I'm looking up because I don't remember. It looked like something entirely different. And I Googled it and it was like, oh no, these are actually the Kias, but they changed their logo so much it was completely
Well, Kia
unidentifiable.
had a like. I'm not trying to talk crap about Kia, but Kia had this reputation of copying other manufacturers on
Hmm.
the body styles of their vehicles. So a lot of people disliked that. It wasn't to that brand like brand lift and facelift
Hmm.
that they got the opportunity to get new potential buyers interested in their cars because now they're not associating Kia with like a copycat company. Oh, this Kia, they're innovating now.
And I think if they had just done it, like done the bridge slightly better, because I mean, the new cars looked great. There was a reason I was looking it up, but I had zero idea that it was Kia. And I mean, some could argue that they did that on purpose because they
Hmm.
wanted a totally new association. But just remember I mean, it's important to know when you're going to go off in a new direction, try to find that tie to where you were originally so that it feels
Yeah,
cohesive.
for us, we have evolved the brand over years. Like we didn't jump into the vibe right off the bat in a sense. What we done is like every single year we kind of analyze. Okay, how can we get back more? So like in a couple years ago, we had an artisan come in, carpenter, to actually build traditional stations for us out of handmade wood, beautiful. Then we elevated to a more traditional porcelain barber chair. So we're still innovating in the company in a sense. Like this is the theme and the brand we're going for. Is just we're taking a slower approach every single day. I think companies should do that constantly. When new trends coming out, they're just implementing slowly.
It's one thing to talk about why good branding matters, but I'm more interested to know how that translates to brands in the marketplace. Like, is there a company that you really admire that you feel like has killed branding and why?
Yeah, 100%. Apple. I'm a huge Apple fanboy.
Obviously. Same, same, same.
Yeah, Apple has done a amazing job over the years, and to say our products are just superior. Like we're bringing you a product that you know is gonna work, that's gonna last a long time, and it's innovating and tech. You know what I'm saying?
There is such a cult behind Apple where even people who are not Apple users, they don't have the same enthusiasm. Like you don't see people walking around with their Google or Samsung. They're like, "Yeah, we're better. We're It's like they have to front so hard. Apple people are just like, "Oh,
We are.
we are, we are." They're like, "Oh, like," and they've done it in such genius ways. Like even the blue versus the green text message to elevate that superiority. Like, oh,
The
you're not in the
ecosystems.
club.
The reality is, Androids. Let's use Android phones, right? They innovate a little bit faster. Apple doesn't implement the changes until they're fully refined and they work within their ecosystem. That ability of just saying this, what we're gonna give you, you know for a fact is gonna work, and you know that the implementation and your workflow is not gonna change, but for the negative, but it's gonna change for the positive. That's why Apple's superior.
I love what you said about their ecosystem. They are developing not just a singular product, but how does that product work in a cohesive environment with everything else they have already released? Because their goal is to get you, typically the Apple user, they don't just have an iPhone. They have an Apple Watch, they have an iPad or a computer. You know, they're just and now the Vision Pro, like
Well,
they
you hit it. So let's talk about the Vision Pro because I love the way that Apple released this product.
Yeah, okay.
So okay, we've been waiting for what 4 years, maybe a little bit over 4 years for the Vision Pro to come out. I think it was called the eyeglass at one point in time. Apple did such a great job of not fully introducing any new technology in this device. They refined the technology so well, and Mark Zuckerberg got on a live and was saying this technology that Apple provided, we provide for you at a cheaper price. Like we have a pass through, we have integrations and multiple different features. Like we do everything that the Apple Pro Vision does, sorry, Vision Pro does, but at a cheaper rate. So Apple did not really say, "Hey, we're gonna reinvent the wheel." What Apple did, which is beyond phenomenal, was the implementation. Everything out there, put it in a packaging that, number one, any consumer looks at that and say that's gonna work at this level. Two, the way that they integrated the ecosystem with virtual desktops and how they put the workflow. It's like, hey, you can use this in a day-to-day life. Like, you can go out, ride a bicycle, and watch your text messages. But if you want to go in the professional realm, this is how it can benefit you professionally, and it stays within the ecosystem. And three, by the sheer volume of advertising, every single location in TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and the core messaging changing a little bit per platform they were in, created this sensation of like, one, I need to try this product, but
Hmm.
this product is gonna benefit my life in this way. And they did such a great job of identifying to each consumer base and applying to that to each consumer base. For professionals, this is how it benefits your life. For skateboarders, this is how this benefits your life.
Okay, you know what I think is so brilliant? Okay, that price point for anyone that knows, this isn't like $3,500.
I think it's
It's
like 4,000, right?
Yeah, so it's a high like price point, and yet they're already marketing it to the everyday consumer. The reality is that right now the only people that are going to buy the Vision Pro are early adopters and people probably in the healthcare field who are going to use it to pull up
I
charts
think it's
and
like
all
less
of
than
that.
1% of their revenues from the.
But no, but listen to this. So they already know their core demographic to actually purchase this product, this premium product, is going to be super niche. But they're not talking to that niche audience. Otherwise, all we would see would be healthcare professionals pulling up charts, that kind of thing. Because that is they have the money, that makes sense, that kind of stuff. No. Just like you said, they're figuring out how does it fit into the everyday person's life. How does it fit in for video gaming or for skateboarding or all of this? Why? Because they are already thinking 5 years down the road when they release this is the Apple Vision Pro. What about the Apple Vision, or Plus or whatever it may be?
Not
And
even.
they have a consumer version. They're already putting it in your mind the things you can do
So,
with
and
it.
that's the beautiful thing about Apple's branding that I love. Apple's branding is not 5 years in the future; it's about 20 years in the future. And I saw a really good video in preparation for this podcast about that. The roadmap of the Vision Pro, right? And Apple wants to, according to this guy's speculation, Apple wants to create a device that is seamlessly applied through a small eyeglass, maybe a lens inside your eye, like a contact lens, where now these features are just simultaneously like a calculators for us doing math.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we cannot operate without this device. And then
It's a little scary. It's exciting.
it's
It sounds
exciting
really cool, but
because
it's also whoo.
the future is like when Neuralink coming out. This is Apple's version. Like, we're not gonna go into your brain, but we can create a product that can even like you can associate living like
It can
phones to us.
seamlessly integrate with your
Thank you.
life. Yeah.
Like phone calls, like our phones, right? If you're not using your phone every single day, you feel like, okay, what I'm gonna do. So
So they're already preparing for that future, even though technologically they're at the Vision Pro standpoint.
mhm.
And they're getting, I love that. You're like, they didn't introduce anything new because that's also something when you look, we've been doing, I like to think about it in the car space. So we've had the capability for electric cars for a long, long, long time.
No, for
And,
hundreds of
and,
years.
and, and then not even electric cars, for automated cars, okay? For like, we've had the technology to do self driving cars to some ability for the past few decades. But boy, oh boy, no major car company has invested in it because they knew consumers weren't ready yet.
Wait,
And no, hold on, listen to this,
okay.
okay? So we've had the technology to understand the basics, and car companies knew they were able to do things, from the time that GPS came about. Not like fully, completely autonomous, but they've been steps ahead of what has been released. And this was intentional because they knew that people were not willing to get in a car. They didn't
That's
have consumer trust.
crazy.
And so while they're developing the technology, they're not releasing it as soon as they have it. They've been kind of holding on to it and sort of testing the market and doing these small little things because if you release a product like, think about Google Glass, 10 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
That technology was the starting point. But boy, we as consumers were not ready for it yet. And a large part, yes, the technology has improved, but not that much. But what has changed is the way that we view our interaction with technology. The culture had to catch up to the technology. And Apple is really smart about that in their branding.
There's another product that Apple's working on right now that I'm super interested in, and it ties into the Vision Pro and it ties into the Apple Watch. It's the Apple Ring.
Ooh.
Is their version of
The Aura
the
ring?
Aura Ring,
Yeah, uh-huh.
and I love how seamlessly like mock-ups are looking, because of course this is just people on YouTube kind of speculating based on patterns and designs.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them I saw, it was a very slick ring that show your text message, your miles, your walk, your
Okay,
heartbeat.
who's over here looking at their ring? Like, let me see what text message.
Yeah, but then I like the fact that it kind of linked. If you're wearing the Apple Vision Pros, you can just see the data automatically. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's cool. Yeah.
So I love Apple's gonna be one of those companies that I always admire for a branding perspective, because they just done such a great job to say this is who we are, this is the quality we're gonna quality we're gonna produce. Use my language, and this is our standards. And if you buy our product, this is what you're gonna get. We're not gonna mislead you. You're gonna pay a nice chunk of change, but you're gonna be happy when you pay that chunk of change.
So we work with companies all day, every day that come in that need new branding. Some of them know they need it, and some of them don't. But let's walk through that process that we've established for what we do to kind of get the juices flowing and get the new branding out in the open.
I think the first step, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm kind of going off my memory right now. We need to make sure we understand their core values or their mission statement. And I think a document that we have that kind of helps us narrow that down is something called a brand voice,
Mm-hmm.
which it kind of states, like, of course, states the company's name, core mission, but how does the creator of that company, for example, the owner, the CEO, whatever the person leading that company, how do they want their message to be delivered to their audience? What message they want to be delivered to their audience, and starting those conversations. So if we can understand exactly who they are, how they want to be communicated with, how they want to communicate to their audience, and just those processes there.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with a logo? Because a lot of times people come in and the words they use, they're like, we need a logo or we need new colors or fonts, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you understand the message and when you understand the communication channels that you want to use, a logo will be a tool to convey that message. The color you choose on that logo and that branding can is a tool. For example, the color blue creates peace and tranquility. The color red is like fire and you're angry or upset like a bull. You know what I'm
Or
saying?
power,
Or power.
strength. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a psychology behind that. And I'm not a creative to that degree that I can tell you all that stuff, but we have an amazing team that based on your missions, based on the way you want to communicate and the channels you want to communicate through, we can suggest different types of logo, different types of color, different types of fonts to provoke emotion and provoke some type of feeling and association. But that process starts with that conversation of how you want to be communicated.
I don't know if you've noticed the same thing, but when we ask these questions to clients, I feel like it's often the first time they've ever been asked these questions.
If it wasn't, I honestly, when I created Classic Cuts, I didn't know this. I knew there's a couple things I like how to build a brand and what I wanted to go in, but it wasn't until I started working with True in the Idea Farm where I started understanding. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa! There's a whole science to this. There's a whole department that I didn't know, and
Well,
I think that a lot of people don't know.
and you don't even need the right vocabulary. So many people don't know what to ask for or what they need, but they know what they like, right?
Hmm.
They know what they like and they don't like. They know what's important to them and the way they would like to present themselves. And for a lot of owner operated businesses, the way they want their business to present is the way they want to present themselves. We've noticed that a lot. Like we work with some fabulous, fabulous companies like, dental companies, even performing arts centers, and they have this vision of who they are as a business, right? So I'll tell you, we worked with this performing arts center that had this amazing brand, and they came in, they're like, they knew what they were about, but they needed it elevated and they needed to update it because they had been around for like over 50 years, and we were translating it to a website. So then you need all the little nuance, right? And
I
it
remember
wasn't
this.
it wasn't for us to tell them you should do these colors and this and this. They were not directionless. They knew. We just had to dig in and find the right questions to ask, and then it became apparent what was important to them. So once we understood their audience, once we understood the way they viewed themselves, we were able to come up with branding and graphics that translated to a brand new website that felt so in line
And
with what they wanted.
I want to make sure that everybody understands that that's a collaboration between both entities. We can provide colors, but until we get your feedback, we can't really refine it to what your message is.
And we have varying degrees of people. Some people come in, they're like, I don't know what I want. I have no idea. Some people are like, I know exactly what I want. And
Or, peop
regardless, we still have to have that conversation to understand.
or people like me that I look at a site and I'm like, I don't like it, and then was like, why you don't like it? I'm like, I honestly don't know. Something just seems off, and Emma makes the most smallest change, maybe like a color, and I'm like, I like it.
That's taken time to understand, though. I used to be so frustrated. I'm like, what do you mean you don't like it? Or what is it that
I
you.
spent so many hours doing this.
Yeah, or it's like, okay, they say they like it, but you don't know why. And if you're trying to replicate it, you have to understand the why
Mhm.
behind it. And to me, it's like, oh, that's such a small change, but it can make a profound difference in how you view and interact with
I
the
think,
branding.
yeah, and then I think it's a process of time. I think as a business owner, the more you work with your team, the more you work in your actual business and refine our conversations, it's gonna get easier to convey. Example, our developer created a website with very little direction, I think, from you and from me. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, I'm in love with the site. It's gorgeous. You're like, yeah, he hit it on the money. I think because you provided him with the right tools for him to just expand it on.
Yeah, that direction, and then giving the creative the freedom to kind of go for it. I do think it's super important. What people often miss out on is making sure that your brand, once you've established it well, that it really translates across everything that you touch.
And that's so hard to do sometimes.
So I know, especially when you have lots of different people working in lots of different parts of the organization, that's why brand guides are super important, so that you know what fonts to use, you know what colors, and you don't think it matters until you see really mismatched social media posts or posters. We work with this one organization that was really extensive and had tons of different branches, and everything each branch produced was
It's different.
entirely different, and it did not look like the same organization. And then they had a harder time securing funding. They had a harder time securing, new customers, because it didn't look like they had their stuff together. But that's such an easy fix, is making
Mhm.
sure that you're all speaking the same language and you're all using the materials that you've agreed upon.
I want to take it back to us in a sense, like we have the challenge going, which is actually a little hard right now. It's getting difficult with the development of the actual pomade, but I know you're working on the brand of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tell me more of the next couple steps in your train of thought in that. How are you? I know I haven't really helped you enough in like pointing direction, but what you got?
Well, actually, and we're going to have a whole separate episode where we basically recorded our conversation for naming and then kind of branding. I'm super excited to show you what we are coming up with. But essentially, with Broki, it's one thing to talk about what we do for our clients, but what are we doing for us, so that people can see that this is, we really do this.
Mm.
So with you, I remember thinking, because you are the client that's like, I don't know what I like until I see it, and then I know. Or I can tell you why I like something, or I can tell you that I like something, but I don't know why. So what we did was, I tried to tie in, I talked about this on another podcast for names. I tried to tie in that personal connection, right? We knew that Puerto Rico is really important to your heritage, and you immediately latched onto that when it came to the name. So Broki, we chose because it comes from this kind of like
Slang.
slang casual way to say brother, like, hey bro, what's up? Like, that's the US version. It would be like Broki. And it just connected with you. And then I started going through different ideas for how we could pull the Puerto Rican culture into
The
the
brand.
brand. And we decided to do 3 different types of brands and then test them in the marketplace to see what people responded best to, and then that's what we were going to choose, because we wanted to show that testing is a part of the process. You don't have to do that. Some people come in and they're like, this is what I want, and you can just find different ways to present that. But we actually came up with, I just honestly did a creative brainstorming session with you. I said, do you remember? I was like, what elements of Puerto Rico and Puerto Rican culture really stand out to you? And at first you mentioned the mountains, palm trees, the
Beaches.
beaches. And I thought, and you like that surfer boy aesthetic. And I was like, cool, you know what? That's one brand idea right there. We can lean heavily into that surfer boy aesthetic. And then the next one, I just started looking at Puerto Rican imagery, and you said bright colors. That came up time and time again. The houses are painted these bright colors. There are these masks. What are they called?
Carnival masses.
So they have these carnival masks, and we found out that each region,
Each
town has their own mask, and they look super cool.
Yeah, the history in that, I found out when we were actually doing the research. It comes back all from like Spain to like scare off demons and stuff like that, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought was super interesting.
And yet it's become this uniquely Puerto Rican thing where each town has its own mask, and
And they have their own festivals. They associated with it, and then I was talking to my dad. It actually it doesn't even represent about scaring demons out. Now it's just more of a cultural thing, which I freaking love.
And so I'm over here like, those are my just thought was that's really cool. And Jose was like, yeah, that makes you were like, that makes perfect sense. And you are actually the one who came up with the idea. I was like, what if we put a mask on, the tin? We're working with like a circle situation, like a sticker. And you were like, wait, but what if each different scent or different type of pomade had its own mask?
Exactly.
And so that was how that idea sort of evolved. And we
then,
kind of, especially because you'd said, oh, maybe I want to do an edgier brand. And like that one we could lean into. It's a little edgy, it's spiky, it's funky.
and then the last one is the Taino one.
Yeah, tell me about that. That one's, I'm excited about all three of these. So I'm also like,
So Tainos are the Native Americans from Puerto Rico, like the actual people that live in Puerto Rico. They have their own like language. They have their own pictograph, I think it's called.
yeah.
Yeah, pictograph.
And you were the one who came up with the idea. You said there's because I obviously didn't know anything about this. You said there's a Taino sun, I think was the first.
And the coqui.
And the coqui, that's what it was. You came, okay, what is the coqui?
Coqui's a frog that's native to Puerto Rico. They took it to Hawaii and it overpopulated, and I think they killed them all. But it's probably the only it is the only place in the world, to my knowledge, I might be wrong, but I'm 99% sure about this, that it lives in Puerto Rico. When you go to Puerto Rico, you hear it throughout the night, coqui, coqui, coqui. And it's honestly gorgeous. And a lot of my jewelry from Puerto Rico, like, so Puerto Rico is really big on artisans, like they handmade a lot of jewelry. And on flags, on jewelry, it's always represented because that's native to Puerto Rico. If you go to Puerto Rico, you're gonna hear that sound. It's the only place in the world you can hear that sound.
So what I did was that conversation is exactly what we do with our clients. I basically pulled apart what are elements of, since we know the brand is going to be for people like, it's going to be tied into Puerto Rican heritage and culture. And that's also a big part of who you are. What are the things that resonate with you? What reminds you of Puerto Rico? And then we pulled those different ideas into 3 entirely separate brand identities that we're going to visualize and then we're going to test. And, with some clients, we don't test and they're just like, this is the one I so strongly align with. But that's how we do it in reality. And that's how we're doing it with Broki.
The reality is, all 3 brands I like. I do like more of the Carnival mask one. I think it's my favorite one. I'm really hoping that one takes off.
I like the Taino one too. The
yeah,
Carnival
Taino's
mask and the Taino one, are
Taino
so
is my
cool.
second one. The beach one I like, but it reminds me of like the Beach Boys from like the
the
the 60s, the
yeah.
70s. But I just want to see how the market reacts and how the testing goes.
Yeah, and no matter what we end up going with, that's what's going to translate across, right? It's going to be the foundation for your website, for the product packaging, but also the way that you speak about the brand. So it really needs to align with your values that we've established.
It's honestly amazing to see the growth that we have done over the last couple of years. I love what we talked about with Apple and the quality of their products is like brand association right there, 101. And I'm excited to see where we go with Broki and how we can associate that brand to be as memorable as Apple.
Well, it's just cool to understand what good branding is, why it matters, and then how it can translate into your business. And understanding that how we've done it over the years for all these different clients, it's really cool to get to do it for ourselves in a product capacity. And I know that part of the reason you admire Apple so much is because they are immediately associated with quality, right?
100%.
So why
That's why I'm
can't
gonna buy the Vision Pro.
Yeah, okay. So why can't we do that with Broki? Why can't we tie into the branding from the get-go that everything about this product is quality?
Yeah. It honestly is because that this recipe development is becoming a little bit complicated, but that's a whole different conversation. At the end of the day, I am excited to continue this conversation. If you guys like conversation like this, which is honestly eye opener, not only to a business owner, but to myself, just continue the education or see your point of view, you guys definitely should subscribe.
Yeah, we drop episodes. Like I said at the beginning, we drop episodes 2 times a week. We're going to be interviewing some super exciting people coming up and talking about topics that need to be talked about more. So subscribe, give us a follow, and we'll see you next time.
Don't forget to ask questions.